Emily held the phone tightly, her knuckles white from the pressure. Her heart sank as she heard the familiar voice on the other end.
I'm sorry, Ethan is sleeping. Emily, please call back later.
Though it had been 5 years, Emily could still recognize that saccharine voice. The woman who haunted her nightmares had returned. She didn't know when the call ended, but tears streamed down her face, soaking the thin diagnosis notice in her hand. Ethan and I grew up together. He had loved Grace for 5 years, while I had loved him for 12. In our sophomore year of college.
Nora, don't you like him? You can have the trash I don't want.
Ethan thought Grace went abroad to further her studies. In his eyes, she remained the pure, flawless princess. I didn't tell him the truth, fearing it would break him. Even in such desperate times, I wanted him to have some hope. I begged my parents to help his family through their crisis, at the cost of being disowned and cut off from them. I stayed by Ethan's side for 5 years. He treated me well, so well that I almost believed we were a truly loving couple. Marriage, to me, was the end of suffering; to him, it was just repaying a debt. But everything was about to change. Grace had returned. Evening. I waited until 2 a.m. for Ethan to come back. Seeing me still sitting in the living room, he paused for a moment.
Yesterday was our 5-year anniversary.
I'm sorry, Nora. I was too busy today and forgot.
Busy? Busy with your first love?
I acted as if nothing was wrong and urged him to take a shower. As I gathered his clothes, I noticed the familiar scent of Grace's perfume and a lipstick mark on his white shirt. I knew this was Grace's way of provoking me. The next day, I woke up early as usual to make him breakfast and packed it for him to take to work. My symptoms were starting to show, a dull pain in my chest, and my face was a bit pale.
How many times have I told you not to tire yourself out? We can afford a housekeeper.
I just enjoy doing these things.
In truth, I didn't. I had never lifted a finger for chores growing up. Back in school, Ethan would occasionally describe his future with Grace, how she would wash his clothes and cook for him, painting a picture of domestic bliss. He said it would be wonderful. His happiness was never meant for me. At noon, I went to Ethan's company to bring him lunch.
Ethan, I brought you lunch.
But when I opened the door, I saw him eating skewers fed to him by Grace, while the breakfast I had painstakingly prepared for him lay discarded in the trash. He never ate street food, claiming it was unsanitary. But Grace loved it. Grace still had that princess-like demeanor, gentle and sweet.
Emily, I was just a bit hungry and took a bite.
Did you like the breakfast?
He knew I had seen everything and looked apologetic.
Sorry, the breakfast was accidentally knocked over by Grace. She didn't do it on purpose. Don't blame her.
I simply nodded and handed him the lunchbox. As he reached out to take it, I suddenly let go. The box fell to the ground, spilling its contents everywhere, much like my dignity, in a mess.
Sorry, I didn't mean to. I just lost my grip.
Ethan had taken Grace on a business trip to a city he had promised to take me to many times but never found the time. He also forgot his promise to accompany me to every class reunion. I attended the college reunion alone. I was attractive, wealthy, and academically successful, a prominent figure back in school.
Our campus queen looks even more beautiful. Why didn't you bring Ethan? You two were the model couple back then.
Are you getting married soon? Congratulations. Make sure to send us an invitation.
I heard Grace is back. You know, Ethan used to be so.
Before he could finish, someone interrupted, realizing his mistake and quickly covering it up with a laugh. When Ethan and I started dating in college, many people doubted us. I was even cyberbullied for a while, accused of being a homewrecker because Ethan had been so good to Grace. But later, Ethan treated me well too, and we became the model couple on campus. Yet, I knew his kindness towards me stemmed from gratitude.
He's been really busy with work lately.
He was indeed busy, taking Grace on a business trip. Just the two of them. What Ethan didn't know was that Grace had been one of my bullies in school. There were many dishes I liked on the table, but I felt nauseous. After rushing to the bathroom to retch for the third time, an old classmate teased me.
Nora, are you expecting?
I suddenly remembered that my period was over a month late. I made an excuse to leave the reunion and went to the hospital for a checkup.
Congratulations, you're 7 weeks pregnant.
The doctor's smile felt like a dagger. I couldn't hold back my tears any longer. I left the hospital under the puzzled gazes of everyone, stepping into the endless night. That night, Ethan and I lay back to back in bed. Though only a meter apart, it felt like a chasm between us.
Ethan, we are still getting married, right?
I felt his back stiffen for a moment. After a long pause, he replied with a single word.
Yes.
Even though I received an affirmative answer, my heart sank. Ethan was a man of his word. If he promised to marry me, he wouldn't go back on it. Besides, he was still repaying my kindness. The next day, I underwent a procedure. The baby hadn't formed yet and never would. I didn't have much time left, so how could the child survive? As I left the hospital, lost in thought, I felt something furry brushing against my foot, tickling me. I looked down to see a tiny, wet kitten shivering in the cold winter air.
That day, I lost a child but found a kitten.
I named it Buddy, pretending that my unborn child had come to me in another form. When I brought Buddy home, Ethan frowned, emanating an aura that warned others to stay away. Ethan had severe cleanliness issues and particularly disliked shedding pets.
Why did you bring this thing home?
No reason, I just wanted to.
It felt like sparks were flying in the air. After a long pause, I won. I knew that if I insisted, he wouldn't disagree. For the past 5 years, he had always indulged me, giving in to my every whim. We had never argued. Narrator, tone, sad since the incident, my health had deteriorated rapidly, even a breeze could give me a relentless fever.
And the middle of the night, woke up from a nightmare, feeling as if we're being roasted over flames.
Lily, tone, terrified Ethan. Ethan?
Narrator, tone, serious. I struggled to turn on the bedside lamp. The other side of the bed was empty and cold, indicating he had been gone for a long time. I called his phone, but there was no answer. Outside, the wind howled and the rain pounded against the windows. For a moment, I wondered if everyone would be satisfied if I simply ceased to exist, sparing me from the agony of my illness. The thought startled me, vanishing as quickly as it came.
Lily, tone, serious, why should I? We were supposed to get married soon. Why should Grace's return shatter everything I had? It was Grace who had left Ethan first. I was the one who pulled Ethan out of his despair.
Narrator, tone, determined. I dialed 911. In the hospital emergency room, I finally saw Ethan, who had been unreachable. My soon-to-be husband was tenderly attending to his first love, separated from me by just a curtain. The on-duty doctor was my colleague. Knowing Ethan was my boyfriend, I quietly asked him not to tell Ethan I was there. Lying on the hospital bed, my throat burned painfully. In a daze, memories flooded back.
When I first found out they were together, Grace had just cornered me in the bathroom with a group of people, dousing me with cold water, slapping me, and tearing my clothes.
Just a wall away, I was barely conscious in the bathroom, listening to the person I liked comforting my tormentors.
Ethan, stay away from her because I'm not happy.
All right, Grace.
Grace always had the image of a sweet angel, but she was much more ruthless in private, and Ethan fell for it completely.
I tried to transform myself into Grace's image, changing from rebellious to gentle and considerate. I studied hard and got into the same school as Ethan, while Grace only got into a third-tier college, but he still liked her.
Later, he somehow found out that I had also been unwell that day.
Nora, I'm sorry. I didn't know you were also unwell that day.
He explained anxiously, almost incoherently.
Grace called me in the middle of the night, saying she felt terrible. I thought she was alone and had no one to take care of her.
Finally, seeing my indifferent expression, he slumped his shoulders in defeat, hugged me, and buried his face in my shoulder, his voice choked with tears.
Nora, I'm so sorry.
After that day, he started being considerate again, as if we had just started dating. He even began learning to cook. The food tasted good, he was talented at everything he did, but it wasn't quite to my liking. Because my frequent fevers weren't treated in time, I developed a lung condition. The doctor said if I had come a day later, it would have been too late. I sat on the sofa, watching his busy figure in the kitchen, my mind blank. If only things could always be like this. Suddenly, I struggled to breathe, as if a hand was squeezing my lungs. I rushed into the room, found my hidden oxygen bag, and breathed desperately, like a fish gasping for water.
Nora, dinner's ready. Come out and eat.
Ethan knocked on the door, urging me. Afraid he would see me in this state, I locked the door. As I struggled to respond, he took a call. I faintly heard Grace's sweet voice.
All right, wait for me. You'll love it.
Not long after, Ethan knocked on the door again.
Nora, something came up at work. I packed some food for you. Remember to eat later.
Suddenly, I realized the food wasn't to my taste because it was all Grace's favorites. Grace liked spicy food, while I preferred sweet.
Will you come to the company annual party?
I didn't respond because I was already bedridden by then. The doctor said my emotional instability and weak immune system had allowed the illness to spread through my blood, affecting my entire body. I probably wouldn't survive the month. When the doctor told me this, I could feel his pity. After all, I was only 25. I still went to the party. The luxurious hotel was filled with business elites clinking glasses. I saw my boyfriend with a young, beautiful woman on his arm. Their outfits were matching black and white, looking very much like a couple. I stood at the hotel entrance, wrapped in a heavy coat. Despite the heating, I felt a chill to my bones. Many people saw me and pointed fingers. I thought, I must look terrible now. I used to be confident that I was prettier than Grace. But now, ravaged by illness, my 5 feet 7 inches frame weighed less than 80 pounds, skeletal and gaunt. Sometimes, when I looked in the mirror, I felt like a walking corpse. Ethan introduced Grace to many people, most of whom were business magnates I had once helped him connect with, even drinking myself into a stomach ulcer for his sake. He was helping Grace expand her network, enjoying the fruits of my sacrifices.
Ethan, let's meet Mr. Thompson next.
Sure.
Ethan finally saw me. He wanted to come over, but Grace pulled him along to the next person. I walked away without looking back. After leaving the hotel, the image of them walking arm in arm, laughing and chatting, lingered in my mind, like a hand gripping my lungs, stealing the oxygen I needed to survive. I fell to the ground, not feeling any pain, as the difficulty in breathing had already taken away all my consciousness.
Hey, come over here. There's a lady who fainted. Call an ambulance.
When I regained consciousness, the familiar sight of a white hospital room greeted me.
You're finally awake. If you ever feel unwell, please seek medical attention immediately. Luckily, a young girl found you in time.
I didn't die. I was saved. Why didn't I die? Because of Ethan, my parents had disowned me. I only had Ethan. Now that Grace had returned, Ethan no longer belonged to me. No, Ethan never belonged to me in the first place. I was already planning to end it all, wasn't I? So why not now? My hand gripped the tube of the ventilator, and in a daze, I pulled it out with force. I survived again. The warning sound of the ventilator attracted the nurse, and I was resuscitated. After a few days in the hospital, I lied, saying I was working overtime. In reality, I had already resigned. My health made it difficult to even stand for a while.
There's a surprise waiting for you when you get back.
The night before we were supposed to register our marriage, I was discharged. When I got home, the living room was dim, with only the ambient light from the balcony on. In the hanging chair where I often sat, a dark figure was sitting, a tiny red ember flickering on and off. With a click, I turned on the main light.
You're back?
MM.
In all the time we had been together, except when his family went bankrupt and he was abandoned by his parents and first love, I had never seen him with red eyes. He extinguished his cigarette, walked over, and helped me take off my heavy coat, holding me tightly.
You've lost weight.
Working overtime is tiring.
In truth, beneath my clothes, I was nothing but skin and bones. The cancer had spread to my stomach, even drinking water made me nauseous. I was surviving on nutritional injections. Before coming back, I had asked the doctor for a strong painkiller, but they no longer worked for me.
I sent you messages, but you didn't reply. I thought you wouldn't come back.
Too busy to check my phone.
In reality, I spent most of my days in a stupor, and even if I saw his messages, I didn't have the energy to respond.
I made dinner for you. You probably haven't eaten well these past few days. Let me heat it up for you.
I glanced at the dining table, laden with 8 dishes and a soup, looking exquisite and delicious. His cooking skills had improved. This time, it was all my favorite dishes. I was momentarily lost in thought. After all these years, did he ever like me, even a little?
No need. I have no appetite. I ate outside. I'm very tired and need to rest.
I hurried back to the bedroom, afraid that if I stayed a few seconds longer, I would collapse in front of him. Buddy darted in before I closed the door, jumping into my arms and licking my chin. I held him, and soon fell into a deep sleep. In the middle of the night, I woke up from a nightmare, feeling someone hugging me from behind. I was startled for a moment before realizing it was Ethan.
Nora, tomorrow, we are getting married.
MM.
I looked out at the night sky, suddenly wide awake. After a long silence, I asked him.
Do you love me?
That night, I never fell back asleep, nor did I get an answer from him. From his breathing, I knew he was awake too, just unwilling to answer my question. Any fleeting hopes I had vanished instantly. The next morning, when I woke up, he was already gone. My heart felt empty, but I was used to it. Struggling to get dressed, I walked out to find the table set with my favorite foods: steamed buns, soy milk, and fried eggs. Ethan was setting the table for me. The familiar aroma made my stomach growl with hunger.
Remember when we went to that tiny cafe and they served this exact breakfast? Good times, right?
Yeah, I remember.
I occasionally responded, and he didn't mind my perfunctory replies. He even seemed happy, with a constant smile on his face. After drinking half a cup of soy milk, I rushed to the bathroom and got sick violently. At the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau, He walked around from the driver's seat to open my door, extending his hand to me.
Let's go, my fiancée.
Okay.
The pleasant atmosphere was shattered by a sudden ringtone. It was the special ringtone Ethan had set for Grace.
Ethan, I'm in so much pain. Please come and help me.
He hesitated and glanced at me. The joy in my eyes vanished, replaced by disappointment. Whenever Grace called, and Ethan hesitated, the outcome was inevitable.
Sorry, Grace, I have something very important right now.
Sniff, I had an accident. I'm in so much pain. How can you ignore me?
Her sweet, coquettish voice didn't sound like someone in real trouble, but Ethan seemed oblivious. After hanging up, he hurriedly got back into the driver's seat, slamming the door shut, as if crushing my already broken heart. Only after starting the car did he remember me, lowering the window with an apologetic look.
Nora, I'm sorry, but Grace.
Can you not go?
I'm sorry, Nora. Wait for me. I promise I'll marry you today.
With that, the car sped away, nearly knocking me over. My lips trembled, but I pressed them tightly together. Ethan, after all these years, I don't want to wait anymore. I returned to the home where Ethan and I had lived together for 5 years. This house was bought with the first money he earned after my family helped save his company. The day he brought me here was also the day we got together. Even though he bought many bigger houses later, we never moved out. Over 5 years, I had gradually decorated this home. But in just a month, traces of another woman had appeared. Scarves and lipsticks accidentally brought back by Ethan, holiday gifts from Grace.
How could he do this to me?
In a frenzy, I destroyed everything that had anything to do with me. If I was going to leave, I wanted to leave cleanly. I wanted Ethan to live with guilt and pain for the rest of his life. Finally, I calmed down, and a wave of exhaustion and pain washed over me. I crawled to fill Buddy's automatic feeder and water dispenser, then dragged myself to the hanging chair on the balcony where I often sat. There was a new ashtray on the side table, filled with cigarette butts. It seemed he had been troubled a lot by our marriage and his issues with Grace.
He won't have to worry anymore.
I picked up the fruit knife beside me and cut my wrist. In my final moments, my life flashed before my eyes. I realized that I had wasted half my life on Ethan. I didn't even notice that my not-so-old parents had gone gray early because I had fallen out with them over Ethan and dragged down our family business.
I'm sorry, Mom and Dad.
With my remaining strength, I dialed the number etched in my heart. The ringtone went on for a long time before a cold mechanical voice answered.
Sorry, the number you have dialed is temporarily unavailable. Please try again later.
Never mind, they were probably doing well abroad and wouldn't want to see their unfilial daughter.
Buddy barked at me for a long time, tugging at my skirt. Finally, as if realizing something, he jumped onto my chest and lay down as he always did when he slept beside me. I looked at the woman in front of me, who seemed perfectly fine except for a bruise on her arm, and felt increasingly irritated. But seeing her aggrieved expression, I suppressed my anger and asked patiently.
Grace, is this the car accident you mentioned?
Ethan, you're so mean. I really was in a car accident. I was terrified.
As she spoke, tears began to fall. Watching her usual tactics, I suddenly felt a wave of frustration. I remembered 3 years ago when the company was on the rise, and I hadn't been home for 3 days. When I finally finished my work, I learned that Nora had been in a car accident and was in the hospital. She was so strong, not needing me to worry or help with anything. But I had forgotten that she had grown up pampered, just like Grace. I only knew she was strong but forgot that she could also fear pain. Suddenly, my heart ached sharply, pulling at my nerves. After the pain subsided, my heart felt empty, as if something was slipping away. In the emergency room, the doctor stared at Grace's bruised arm for a long time before giving us a bottle of inexpensive medicine with a stern face.
In the future, don't come to the emergency room for minor bumps and bruises. It wastes time for patients with real emergencies.
Knowing we were in the wrong, I was about to pull Grace away. But she wasn't having it.
How can you say that? I was in a car accident. How do I know if I have internal injuries if I don't see a doctor? You're an incompetent doctor, dismissing me after just a glance. I want a full body examination. What if I have hidden injuries because of your negligence? Can you take responsibility?
Looking at the spoiled woman in front of me, I suddenly felt she was a stranger. Grace had always been delicate, but she had never been so unreasonable and unruly. I grabbed her, a bit angry.
Grace, stop it!
Unexpectedly, Grace burst into tears.
Ethan, you.
Young lady, I saw you deliberately bump your arm against the wall before this person arrived. We have surveillance cameras in the hospital. Please leave and stop disturbing my consultation.
The doctor's words were like a wake-up call, resonating in my heart. I forcefully pulled her out, showing her a cold face for the first time.
Grace, why did you deceive me into coming here? Do you know today is the day Nora and I are getting our marriage certificate?
I just don't want to see you with that woman. Besides, leaving her won't make her upset, right?
I suddenly remembered that during the month she had been back, she claimed she couldn't find a job, so I let her join my company. Every time I wanted to go home or meet Nora, she would have some sort of accident or emergency. And what did Nora think when I was with Grace? The thought made my heart ache as if it were being squeezed by an invisible hand.
Grace, do you know that Nora and I are a couple?
She suddenly hugged my waist, burying her face in my chest.
So what? You treat me so well because you still like me, right? If you like me, how can you marry her? I heard she helped your family through tough times, but that was her choice. Do you really have to spend your whole life repaying her? Ethan, let's be together. I still love you.
I was shocked and pushed her away abruptly.
How can you think like that? I take care of you out of old affection. I promise to make sure you live well, but I never intended to get back together with you.
I admitted that I hadn't completely let go of Grace. When I heard she was back, I was somewhat happy. But I also knew that we were a thing of the past. This past month, I treated her like a sister, considering how fragile she was. But Grace had always seen our relationship this way. What about others? Would they see it the same way? And Nora? Thinking about Nora's coldness and indifference towards me over the past month, a wave of panic surged in my heart.
Don't come to work tomorrow. I'll recommend you to a friend's company.
Just as I finished speaking, several nurses and doctors rushed past, pushing a gurney stained with a large, glaringly red patch. I couldn't dodge in time and stumbled. As the gurney passed, I caught a glimpse of a pale, familiar face, but I couldn't immediately recall who it was. I vaguely heard words like wrist injury and severe blood loss. I clutched my chest, trying to calm the inexplicable panic that overwhelmed me. What was happening? My heart had been feeling uneasy all day. A few minutes later, just as I was about to leave with Grace, the door to the emergency room swung open. A doctor, his scrubs covered in blood, shook his head in disappointment and said to a nearby nurse,
We lost them. Contact the family.
I stared blankly in that direction, the dull ache in my heart making it hard to speak.
Ethan, what's wrong?
My phone suddenly rang. Seeing it was an unknown number, I ignored it and hung up. I didn't want to deal with anything right now, I just wanted to get back to Nora. She must be feeling so sad and scared alone. The phone rang 2 more times. Thinking it might be important, I was about to answer when Grace stumbled and knocked the phone out of my hand. It shattered on the floor, the screen going black.
I'm sorry, Ethan. I twisted my ankle.
Suppressing my frustration, I took her to get her ankle checked and then brought her home. By the time I looked at the clock, it was already afternoon. I hurriedly drove to the Civil Affairs Bureau, but I was too late. The bureau was closed, and Nora was long gone.
Back home, in the elevator, I saw traces of something on the floor, reminding me of the person who couldn't be saved at the hospital. My temples throbbed.
When I opened the door, my heart sank completely. The elevator doors opened, and I rushed out, seeing my front door wide open and the inside in chaos, as if it had been ransacked. Suppressing my panic, I followed the traces to the balcony. Nora's favorite hanging chair was stained, with a pool of red beneath it. The words self-inflicted injury, excessive loss pounded in my head and heart like a hammer. Thinking of the unknown number from the hospital and the phone Grace had smashed, I felt a piece of my heart had been torn out. I ran numerous red lights driving to the hospital, but the doctors remained tight-lipped. Repairing the phone would take a day. I suddenly realized I knew nothing about Nora's social circle, and our mutual friends had all drifted away after I started seeing Grace. I had no way to contact her friends to ask about her whereabouts. I went to her parents' house, but no one answered the doorbell despite ringing it for a long time.
Young man, do you need something?
Grandma, I'm the boyfriend of the daughter of this family. I came to visit her parents.
The Jean girl cut ties with her parents for a man. That man isn't you, is it?
What? Cut ties?
Don't bother ringing. They sold their company and moved abroad long ago.
I felt like I'd been struck by lightning. I wandered back in a daze, not knowing how I got home. Years ago, my family's company was on the brink of bankruptcy. My parents fled abroad, leaving me to deal with everything. I had to take a break from school to handle it all. I had sought help from Mr. Johnson, as our families were once close. But he refused because my parents had swindled a large sum from them before leaving. For some reason, Mr. Johnson later reached out to me, offering help. With his assistance, the company started to recover. But I didn't enjoy business, I loved studying mathematics. When I was struggling with the company, Nora came to help. Though she studied medicine, my parents always said she had a knack for business. Nora took a break from school to help me until the company was stable and I was familiar with the operations. Only then did she return to finish her studies. After that, I confessed my feelings to her. She was happy, and we got together. But deep down, I knew I didn't truly love her. I knew Mr. Johnson's help wasn't without reason, so I gave Nora what she wanted most. She loved me, I knew that. Later, I asked why she never visited her parents. She always brushed it off with excuses about them traveling or being too busy. I never imagined. Nora and I grew up together. I'm not someone who was oblivious to emotions. I noticed when she first started liking me.
Serious, but I'm sorry, I couldn't reciprocate.
So when Grace suggested I distance myself from Nora, I complied.
Thoughtful, Nora is a wonderful girl, carefree and lively, always surrounded by friends.
But I preferred gentle and quiet girls, those who excelled in their studies and spoke softly, like Grace.
Reflective, however, at some point, Nora's personality began to change. She became gentle and demure.
After the college entrance exams, Nora and I both got into Ching University.
Sad, ironically, Grace, who had always been a good student, didn't make it. She didn't even get into a bachelor's program, so I funded her studies at a vocational college in the same city.
Now I understand.
Regretful, if Grace was always taking from me, Nora was always giving, without expecting anything in return.
But it's too late for realizations now. I can't find my Nora anymore. At some point, Nora moved into the guest room. When I found a stack of medical reports in the drawer of the guest room, my hands trembled.
The date of the diagnosis was the same as our 5th anniversary. What was I doing that day?
I had picked up Grace from the airport and spent the entire day with her at the office. How desperate must Nora have felt? Late-stage lung cancer. My Nora was still so young.
The stack of papers was thick, with over a dozen medical reports and several hospital admission forms. When I saw the prenatal checkup and termination forms among them, I broke down.
I pounded the wall with my fists, then hit my own face. It hurt. But not as much as Nora's pain. We had even had a child. Her body grew increasingly frail, and she had been hospitalized so many times right under my nose. How did I not notice? Was it avoidance or willful ignorance?
Proposing marriage had taken me a long time to decide. I thought I didn't love her, that being with her was just a way to repay a debt. Besides, being with her wasn't bad.
But Grace's return disrupted my thoughts. Even though I wouldn't get back together with Grace, I began to question whether a loveless marriage was the right choice. Was it fair to Nora?
So I complied with Grace's requests more and more, spending less and less time at home.
But I noticed that Nora also started to grow distant. Even when I walked hand in hand with Grace, she remained indifferent. Had she grown tired of me?
Without Nora, I began to feel unsettled, but I thought it was just because I was used to her presence. Now I realize, I didn't just get used to her, I had fallen in love with her. But she didn't want me anymore. She left.
Nora's friend contacted me on the 3rd day of her disappearance. I arrived at the hospital just as Jessica was coming out of the operating room. Seeing my red eyes, she bluntly threw 3 words at me.
She's gone.
Even though I had expected this answer, I still couldn't bear it and fainted. When I woke up, I was lying on a bed in the rest area. Jessica looked at me coldly, her eyes filled with suppressed disgust and hatred.
Where is she?
I've already taken care of her arrangements. She's at the cemetery now, but I don't want you to disturb her. She wouldn't want that either.
I covered my face, tears streaming through my fingers. Jessica looked at me as if I were a clown. Yes, I was a clown.
Did she leave any belongings?
Yes, but you don't deserve them.
For the first time in my life, I resorted to theft. While Jessica wasn't paying attention, I stole the box on the table. Inside were Nora's things. Emily's voice on the phone was unmistakable, even after all these years. I'm sorry, Ethan is sleeping. Emily, please. I'm sorry, Ethan is sleeping. Emily, please call back later. Though it had been 5 years, I could still recognize that saccharine voice. Ethan's first love, the woman who haunted my nightmares, had returned. I didn't know when the call ended, but tears streamed down my face, soaking the thin diagnosis notice in my hand. As I flipped through Nora's memos, my heart began to shatter piece by piece. Just then, the property staff knocked on my door, bringing a cat.
Mr. Bennett, this should be your cat. I saw your girlfriend walking it in the neighborhood before.
The white cat was even thinner than before, its once pristine fur now dirty, and it looked at me with its blue eyes. I seemed to see the same indifferent gaze Nora had when she was hurt.
Yes, thank you.
I took Buddy into my arms, but as soon as she was there, she struggled violently, crying out in a heart-wrenching manner. I don't know if it was my imagination, but I seemed to see a look of disdain in the cat's eyes.
Mr. Bennett, this cat doesn't recognize you.
Yes, he's closer to my wife.
Oh, you two got married? Congratulations.
My heart ached with every beat.
Yes, just a few days ago. Thank you.
Buddy would run away every day, no matter how I tried to keep her in. She always found a way to open the door and escape. Then, neighbors or the property staff would find her and bring her back. I checked the surveillance footage and found that she wandered around the places Nora used to frequent every day. When she returned, she would lie on Nora's bed. A month later, Buddy passed away. She died at the hospital entrance. Run over by a large truck, her body was crushed, but her head still faced the hospital entrance, her limbs stretched forward. I didn't know how long it took her to find the hospital. I used a shovel to scrape her remains off the ground and took her for cremation. Using my identification, I bought a plot next to Nora's and buried Buddy there. After Nora left, I visited her for the first time. I brought her favorite sunflowers and placed them in front of her tombstone, crying uncontrollably. At that moment, I finally realized that Nora was truly gone. She had left me.
You're not well. You need to understand that.
But I knew I wasn't. Nora said I was perfectly fine. I started delegating work to my subordinates, leaving the office early every day to buy groceries and cook Nora's favorite dishes. But Nora didn't seem to have much of an appetite. I looked it up, and it's normal for expectant mothers to feel nauseous. Buddy was already 3 months along, and Nora was starting to show. But she still wasn't eating, and I was very worried.
Your cooking is really delicious.
Was my cooking really that bad? It seems being a good father and husband is really challenging, but I'm determined to learn. Today, Nora finally agreed to accompany me to work, but my subordinates all had strange expressions and didn't talk to her much, even though they used to get along well. Those who don't like Nora will have to go. I don't want Nora to be unhappy. Nora's belly grew larger, making it difficult for her to turn over, and she often complained of back pain. I learned how to give massages, and Nora praised my skills. Buddy moved for the first time. It might be a boy because the kicks were strong. But I prefer a girl. If it's a girl, she'll be as cute and beautiful as Nora, and I'll treat them both like princesses.
Where is our daughter? What have you done to her?
I felt so wronged, but I had to endure it because they are Nora's parents and mine too. But I don't understand, isn't Nora right here? Why can't they see her?
You're not well. You need help.
How could that be? I feel like the happiest person in the world. How could I be unwell? Nora is about to give birth, and I bought lots of baby clothes, both for boys and girls, but I still hope it's a girl. Nora started bleeding and was in so much pain. I rushed her to the hospital, but the doctors wouldn't treat her. I was taken away. They said I needed to be confined for treatment, but I'm not unwell. I'm locked up. What about my Nora? Nora is about to give birth. Nora, where are you? I was hallucinating. Nora had been gone for a long time.
Boss, are you all right? You look pale.
I hired a professional manager to run the company for me, and then spent over a year traveling across the country with photos of Nora and Buddy. Nora once said that when we got old, she wanted to travel the country with me. I returned to our home. Nora appeared again, saying she and Buddy were lonely and wanted to take me with them. I tried to end my life. But I didn't succeed. I was taken to the hospital.
Sir, you need to rest. You have people who care about you.
They were so annoying. I wasn't trying to end my life. I just wanted to be with my wife and daughter. I really didn't want to stay in this world alone. I missed her so much. What if I was too late and Nora didn't want me anymore? Every time I was resuscitated in the emergency room, I opened my eyes to even deeper despair. I really missed her so much. I was so tired. When Michael received the call from the police station, he was utterly shocked.
What happened? My boss nearly harmed Grace?
He had known Ethan since their school days and had heard about the legendary love story between Ethan and Grace.
But over the years, I saw how well Nora treated Ethan. Compared to the spoiled Grace, I believe Nora was a better match for him.
Just when Ethan was about to marry Nora, Grace returned. Ethan treated Grace very well, despite her having spent 5 years abroad achieving nothing.
She cried to Ethan about not finding a job, and he immediately arranged a position for her. Grace clung to Ethan every day, causing chaos among the colleagues.
I thought Ethan and Nora's wedding would never happen. And indeed, it didn't. Nora passed away. Later, when Mr. Johnson had his episode, he felt somewhat relieved deep down, considering how wonderful Nora was. But he never expected that he would almost harm Grace.
Mr. Johnson, let me help you.
Grace couldn't make it outside and came back to Mr. Johnson, who lost control. He took a knife and made a small cut on Grace's wrist.
Help! Somebody help!
Fortunately, her loud cries brought help in time, and she was rushed to the hospital. Grace nearly didn't make it and was furious, threatening to sue Mr. Johnson.
I will sue you for this.
However, it was to no avail. I submitted Mr. Johnson's mental health certificate, and besides, Grace had sneaked into his house. Mr. Johnson was acquitted but was ordered to be sent to a psychiatric facility for supervision.
Please, take this USB drive and release its contents. And these contracts. One to donate half of my assets to the Children's Relief Fund and the other to give the remaining half to Nora's parents. I hope for their forgiveness.
Once the contents of the USB drive were released, Grace's reputation was instantly ruined. Videos and photos of her bullying classmates in school, her intimate moments with wealthy heirs, and a video of her being chased naked through the streets abroad after being caught as a mistress. It was shocking to see. It became clear why Mr. Johnson had lost control.
Nora had second thoughts halfway through.
What changed her mind?
Grace sent her a photo. She and Mr. Johnson were in a rather close moment.
That must have been devastating for Nora.
She called me to arrange her affairs, but by the time I sensed something was terribly wrong and rushed over, it was too late.
6 months later, I received a rare call from the psychiatric hospital.
Mr. Johnson had taken his own life.
On the same balcony where Nora had ended hers.
In the end,
Ethan curled up in the hanging chair on the balcony, frowning as he slowly closed his eyes.
So, the last feeling Nora had that day wasn't pain, but relief.